And we're in. All right. Everyone, thank you for coming tonight, especially all my friends, my old alma mater there, Voices/Right Point. Tonight I've got quite a lineup for you. What I want to show you tonight is all about language. And the reason I chose languages when I taught it this year is because I find that language is actually very powerful. And when you use language to enable technology, what you end up with is something really quite special. So what I'm going to show you is a handful of things using language to make Sitecore even more powerful. The first what I'm going to do is kind of talk about the problem as I see it, offer some solutions with using language, and then talk about some of the things that I've got that I haven't built, but I know that I can, and eventually hope to get. And then obviously show you where you can get it. If you want to use it yourself, everything you're going to see tonight is open source on GitHub. Maybe part of it's even on NuGet, whatever is more handy. So the problem is that a lot of the sites that we build really only speak to our audience one way. We put our content out there, we build all these sites, spend all this time, design, UX, everything, but we don't ever listen to our users. And it's the problem. We do have a handful of ways of listening to what they're saying, but it's not an intuitive way. Right? What we allow them to do is interact with forms. They can use the search box. They can give us some kind of an idea of what they're doing based on the analytics if we're tracking them. We can try A/B tests, which is a little bit more helpful, but not necessarily automatic. So the reason that these things are all problematic here, though, is that forms can be really annoying. I don't know if you've found this to be true, but I've often encountered a lot of long forms, bad UI forms, complex validation, captcha fields that you just can't seem to get to accept. All these things add up to a really high dropout rate. Right? And a lot of cases, I read a survey where a B2B business has found that they really only were able to capture 10% of people who were interacting with their forms, which is a tragedy. I mean, you're not getting much of anything from your users if that's all you're getting. The other problem there is that we have search, right? Search is a really powerful tool, but it does one thing really well and nothing else. Search can find a needle in a haystack, but unfortunately can't answer a question. And not to pick up Sitecore, but I did use them as we were at the user group. I used them as the example. I went to their site, I typed in, I want to buy a Sitecore license. It didn't give me anything. Lead generation, no follow-up contact sales. You get things that, they're commerce tools. But it's a common problem. No search really does this besides Google. The third part here is really analytics and A/B testing, which are hard. Analytics really requires a lot of data, a high volume of data to get it anything statistically significant. And you also have to have good data. You can gather as much data as you want, but if it doesn't make any sense, it will never help. The other problem is that you need somebody to interpret it. If you don't have somebody on staff who knows what the data means and then relates it to the business, most of us are probably consultants, so every business that we deal with is different. If you don't know how to adapt that data to that business, you really don't know what that means. It means something completely different for two different companies. So how do we solve that problem? Well, we solve it with language. And the way that we do this is by creating two-way conversations. So on a site, instead of offering somebody just a field that maybe or a form that's going to be 10% of people are ever going to look at, what we can do is try to ask them direct questions. Now, there's a lot of times there's questions that marketers really want to know what the answer is, and they go through all these technical ways of going about it. But what if you could just ask them? What if there was just a way to just post a question, say, here, answer this question, and we're going to interpret what you say. And we can understand what they're saying, and then take action on that, follow up, do other things. And the way that this works is, so take a phrase like this, somebody comes in and they say, I want to buy running shoes, or a Sitecore license, whatever it is. We can break this down and say, we know that the verb, because language is all about nouns, verbs, adjectives, pronouns, but if we know what the verb is, we know what they're trying to do. If we know what the noun is, we know what they're trying to do it too. So we know they're trying to buy a running shoe, or we can look it up, we can make a button that says, add it to their cart. It's not actually that difficult to do. Now, with the tools that we have available. Of course, that's an easy example. If it goes further, what we can do is follow up with follow-up text. You know, oh, okay, you were trying to buy shoes? What size? What color? What brand? And gather more information so we have enough, then we give them the button, and they're off and running. Instead of them poking around your site, trying to find it, you know, whatever it is they're trying to do, instead we can really kind of move quickly and get them to where they want to be. Which brings us to demo 1, which indicates there's 2 demos on that guy. All right. So I wanted to try to find a way to make language into a UI that would be universally understood. And so I ended up here, which I hope all you know what that means, right? So it still functions, this is search, obviously. You can go in and you can, you know, search whatever. It's going to search, this is Bing, whatever, it does search, okay? But you can also ask it a question. Excellent. You can add it to your calendar, right? It knows that you were trying to find an event, and it knows that's what you're trying to do, and it gives you that option right away. Instead of having you go to a page, find a link, maybe the next link, or 2 or 3 later, maybe you found what you were looking for. No, we got to you immediately. We can also do it with other questions. The Dominican Republic. So it knows the difference between asking for an event and asking for a location. Because now it's giving me a link to a map. I want to buy a red car. And you're actually, as you can tell, it's actually parsing it differently for the search. So it knows red car, the search is dumber. It doesn't handle all the things that you're asking for. So it rips out more information and searches on that. But it knows buy a red car. You're trying to buy a red car. Here's a car, add it to a cart. I don't know if that is something you can do, but if it is, now you can do it search. But these are the types of things where we're actually enabling language. We're allowing you to ask the question to your search engine and answering it and going in different directions for any different questions. Again, though, this is only one part. What if we wanted to do something a little bit more complicated? So now what I'm doing is I'm entering into a conversation. So this is going to be asking me questions, I'm answering, it's going to follow up with more questions until we get through the process and finish. You need to do validation. That's not my answer. It's finished. UI indicates that there was a session that we were doing something. It was a big blue. Now it's gone. Now it's back to the search field. At any point, it could have been the X, and it would disappear as well. I can also do something like a form registration. Right? I can go through the process again. I can nix out of it. But this allows me to have more of a unique experience with the user. We have a back and forth now, a dialogue. This is a more powerful experience for a user, and they can find what they're looking for a lot quicker. And that's really the point. I think if we're thinking about all the things that we try to do, all the analytics, all the personalization, what were we trying to do? We're just trying to get that user to where they want it to be faster. So that's demo 1. Now back to the slide. The language is powerful. Speech is just as powerful. Now the difference being language is written, speech is spoken, and you can write one way, but basically you're going to speak in a dozen different ways, right? There's a lot of different dialects and speech patterns. So speech is actually a much more difficult problem. But again, this is not something that you're going to have to build. This is something that Microsoft built, something that Google, Amazon, IBM built. So you can just tap into their service. And I wouldn't say that it's perfect yet, but it is good enough to start with. There are a handful of things that you can do with it that'll get you somewhere that is worth doing. And then over the years, I think you're going to see a lot of improvement. But it's worth getting into it now. So the things that you can do, which I think that are the most powerful, are text-to-speech. You can convert something text to audio. You can take your audio, convert it to text, Or you can do translation. So you're using kind of a mix of either. You know, speech to speech from one language to another, speech to text, text to speech. But it's basically turning, like, if I was speaking, I was converting it on the fly. I could convert it to Italian or whatever. I haven't done this. I'm not bilingual enough to even test it. I've got something for you, Alex. All right. So the first thing that you can do with this, that I've encapsulated here, is a blogcast. So if you have an article or a blog with a lot of textual information, you can convert that into an MP3 and play it. And the value here is that if you have a blog, you can suddenly add a huge surface area to your audience so that they can use this website in a whole new way. They can use it on the go. You're leaving the office, you're reading an article, you get a new car, you're not going to be, you want to be hands-free. You go to the page, you hit play, you put it on your dashboard, and you just go. Now you're listening to the page that you were reading. That's a really cool feature, right? This isn't something that's obviously going to replace things for handicapped people with their hearing devices. I don't think it's going to be the level of quality that they require, plus they have their own tools that they like. But for a general commercial audience, this is a really interesting thing that they can value. So, moving on, there's a conversational chat. The idea of having the ability to if you've seen my earlier text presentation where I had a chatbot, that's just all text, where you're texting back and forth on your phone or whatever. But the conversational chat is where you're actually speaking, and it's speaking back to you. Since we're able to convert text back and forth, it really is just a layer on top of having a textual chatbot. And I'll show you that later. But again, it's this idea of trying to free up the users of the system that can now work on the go. You can have a bit more of a hands-free experience. You don't have to be so tied to your laptop. You can actually just have your phone and still get a lot of work done. Bring demo. All right. So this is an article. It's a fairly long piece. Has a lot of acronyms and dates and all kinds of things that'll be tripping people up, whoever would read it. But what I'm going to do is I click this button, and as we're sitting here, what it's going to do is it's going to take that body of text, it's going to pull out all the HTML, it's going to start to break it up into pieces, send it off to the speech application, come back as an MP3, paste it all back together, and I'm going to do it in two different voices, one for male, one for female. So here's two different voice transcripts of this. And the thing to note here is that in any previous version of text-to-speech, you were going to deal with a voice that was probably grating, the robot voice, something that you wouldn't really be able to listen to a full article's voice reading to you. But these are new from Microsoft. They're two neural network trained voice systems. I don't really know how they do it, but I know that it's not bad. So there's a handful of mute buttons. Let me find the right one. I'm blaming you, Dan. One more.
This means that generic companies must now participate in the referral procedure and implement its outcomes, which can include changing the product information, conducting post-authorization safety and efficacy studies, and implementing other risk minimization measures. Referrals are a fact of life. Get over it. John Barber, Director of Pharmacovigilance, EU Operations for Dr. Reddy's Laboratories, invite.
Drug companies should ensure early involvement of their regulatory affairs personnel in EU referral procedures to help anticipate possible outcomes and facilitate their smooth implementation.
So there you have it. We have 2 pages, and it kind of has this natural kind of progression. It knows how to handle commas. It breaks up sentences crazy. Even the EU does dates well. It's really kind of an interesting thing to even play with. And to be honest, it didn't take me that long to build this page. Probably a couple of days. On to the more interesting parts of the demo. Okay, so for those of you who didn't see this before, what I've done is I built the chatbot into Sitecore to make it mobile friendly. I've tried to make it more usable in the sense that you can either I mean, this thing pops up basically in any mode, but I do have a full screen mode. Bring it down. And it has control for both the audio coming at you, so you don't have to hear it, but you also can hear it, you can speak to it. What I'm going to do is fire this up, try it out. What version are you?
My version is 8.2.170614.
How many locked items do I have?
You have 1 locked item.
Unlock my item.
I've unlocked one for you.
How many users are logged in?
There is 1 user. Sitecore/admin.
I want to publish a page.
What item do you want to publish?
Cancer.
What database did you want to publish to?
Web.
What language should I publish to?
Mexican. Mexican English.
Select a valid language.
Mexican English.
Do you want to publish all children?
Yes.
Publish related items also.
No.
Please confirm your options or click selection to make
Confirm.
changes. I published regulatory comment on Credit Card Act Rule Advance Notice and cancel requirements to the web database in Mexican English with its children.
Talking to Sitecore. Welcome to the future. So this is it. Actually, I have one more trick up my sleeve. Log out. There you go. Yeah, give me a double clap. Woo! Right, that was it. So anyway, jump back into this world. So that's we have anything else. That's working with Sitecore with speech enabled. And this is something that I'm hoping will start to gain traction, because there's a lot of things that I've already started to think about that I can use this with, not just the speech, but the language portion. But I really like being able to get that working and seeing what was possible, like an idea that I had 2 years ago. I was like, man, if I could talk to Sitecore, this would be awesome. And then I finally, got around to doing it. Like, I was just like up out of my chair the first time, I got it working. Like, completely, let's go, yeah. Took a selfie. It was like, there, got it, good. I'm really excited just because, again, I think language really has this unique power, something that we all share. So some of the things that I do see that we can do with this that are really powerful, because language could be enabled with the search. So if you have a search field, right, one of the things in the image here that shows this is an Amazon search. And what probably bothers me the most, because anytime you search for anything, you get this enormous list of checkboxes that you click one thing and it throws you to the top and resets the whole page. Drives me insane. But if you had something very simple that was just asking you follow-up questions, you kind of poke through until you got the search down to where you wanted it, the fastest, I'm looking for shoes. I wanted anything above a 4-star, whatever it is. Things that would just make the UI so much better. And at the end of the day, we're building websites for people, and if they don't like them, they don't come to them. We have to at least, factor in that these people need to enjoy the experience that they're having. And this is a really good way to improve that. Another way to do that is personalization. This is actually something I'm working on right now for, I hope will be my symposium presentation in the fall. What I'm trying to do is help people set up personalization. A lot of our clients just don't use it. To me, it's sad because it's really powerful if you get it working, but a lot of people can't get over that barrier. I'd rather be having conversations with people about how do I make a more effective personalization strategy, or what's a better way to apply this to my content, or whatever. But we're basically getting on with how do you even set it up? How does it work? How does it do anything? And that to me, I think, is something that I can solve, because with the chatbot, what it really does is it enables this language interface to anything you want to do. And you can basically break a form down into. You can walk people through it. So what I'm going to do is create a whole set of intents, which is what they call when you break each thing down, so that you can create a goal, update, attach a goal to content or profile or template. You create personas, you create cards, hate the name. I'm going to rename it to things that marketers would understand, and make sure that you can set up personalization just through this conversational UI and get it up and running and have it working at least at a bare bones level. And then we can have real conversations about what personalization is, should be. So for anybody who is curious, this thing is actually running on 5 different APIs, different set of them for each of them. The Google search was using all of them but speech. The Logcast is just using the speech, and the chatbot is using Lewis, the speech, and the spell check. So the idea, when I'm talking and if I say something and it comes back, it doesn't know what I said, kind of misspells it quickly, does a spell check, fixes it, then sends it off. But even this, with so much power in just 5 small APIs, and basically I've been using it for free for 2 years, 2.5 years. I think that kind of says everything, right? A lot of it is, if you're a developer, you're trying to consider whether or not you're going to waste your time with technology, but it costs you nothing. And the upside is potentially a lot of value. I'm hoping that will be enough for you to kind of, turn the key here, get it going. So, if you're interested, there's 2 on NuGet. So the way I broke it down is there's a core, which basically has the connectors to all the APIs, and then there's features. Each feature is its own repo. The podcast and the search are not necessarily, they're not on NuGet because they're not really like a thing you want to install. It's just kind of like a follow. You can take it apart, figure out how we did it, and do it yourself, because every design is going to be different. But the core and Ola are on NuGet. That's an easier way for you, I don't know. GitHub has all of them, so you can get the source. The only thing you're going to need to know about that is that the core is actually the solution. And in the features folder, that's where each of the other projects are. They're like subfolders, and that folder is ignored on the parent level. Blog post is going to be coming out after this, kind of walk through how to set up things and get it working. And then, of course, my blog. I'm sorry, I wrote a bunch of higher level conceptual articles for Believers Blog, just to kind of get people thinking, marketers, and get them into the door so we can have conversations about how we can apply it. But these are at least a handful of specific examples, but I also don't want to limit it in any potential client case. So here's kind of like a graphic of just like, think of the foundation as like one thing. There's the SDK, which is kind of like the ring that ties them all together. And the Microsoft, IBM, Nexosis, Lexalytic, and BigML. BigML is still partial working. I'm working on that one now too. The features are going to be independent. So you can add your own, you can do whatever. You can use them as a model to build your own so you know how to inject it. But essentially it comes down to content, which I'll show you how that kind of works. So when you install this, it's under modules, it's just a node. Maybe let me explain. I'm new to this whole Sitecore thing, so bear with me. So here under this Sitecore is just a folder, but here are the APIs, and so for Microsoft, please don't take a screenshot of my keys. You go in and you can basically paste in your keys. The retry is kind of like an idea where if this thing fails, so there's a limit to how much you can use on a free service. So if it fails, it waits a handful of seconds for it to time out, and then you can start calling it again. Which is the way I got around using the free service. That's with like, still being able to scale it out to thousands of items or whatever. But here, I have a bunch of different settings and things. So you go to the root page on any given node, and it gives you like a setup form, and it tells you to paste in which keys you need, hit save. But like here's the intelligent search. This is the like I'm storing all the schema here from Lewis. So when you set it up, you have all that, and you can test it. You can, make sure it's working before you go and build something with it. All the chat. Oh, so you just has dictionary text. All the working of this is actually in code, but it also has the JSON backup here, which is, that's actually most of the value. It's really the training data. And if you were to go into Lewis, because that's one of the one I feature the most, I can show you at least the two applications and what they look like. You know, I won't go too deep, but to give you a flavor of what it looks like to try to build an application. So Ola here, testing. So I've got a lot of, and it's continuing to grow, and I'm actually have to prefix everything so I can kind of keep them together. So here's already my beginning of the personalization event, just creating all the things that you need. Being able to determine whether somebody said yes or no, they could be able to say yeah, yay, yeah, whatever, something like that. So I have a lot of, you know, that. So if even if you need yes or no situation, I can tell which one they were going for. Profiling. So some of these are just like locked items, schedule publishing. I didn't really go into kicking users out. There's all kinds of like things that are, you know, and each one of these, if you go into them. So for example, show you the publishing. This is all the ways that you can ask to publish. And then each of these parts here where this is a path. And I indicate this is a path. Tell me when they receive something like this, give that to me as a variable. This is the database name. Probably more. Just different ways you can do it, broken up in different, so you can tell it recursively and it'll know to pull that out, set that flag, and skip that question. And it kind of gives, you know, so all the questions that it's trying to ask you can skip really fast and you just tell it right away. That kind of thing. Similar with the intelligent search, this one is actually a little bit different. I want to show you. So in the OLO, I'm being very specific about what it is I'm breaking apart. I'm saying this is the path, this is the database. But in this case, a lot of these, what I'm trying to do is break this down into like actual language. Because in a sense, I'm trying to handle any question, and I want to be able to know anything about that question, because I can rephrase it to you. I can re-ask you, I didn't understand that. Is this what you were looking for? Are you trying to buy a whatever? And just having it all broken down into actual language parts makes a lot more sense in this case. What to do with this? Hopefully, what you saw tonight is exciting, and we'll hope you think of the opportunities that are now available to you with tools like this, and encourage you to go out and build these into your next application and then offer them to your clients. Because now is the time to start speaking to your audience in a whole new way. Thank you.